This lesson is on Chapter 1, Section 2, titled Variables, Expressions, and Properties. You're going to notice a lot of similarities between this lesson and actually a lesson that we did in 6th grade math on Chapter 1 actually, but this is just kicked up a notch here. I'm going to review orders of operations. As you know, we talk about please excuse my dear Aunt Sally as the order that we work with. Remember that P stands for parentheses, the E stands for exponents, the M and the D, notice how I put them on the same line. It stands for multiplication or division. Know that you have to work from left to right to understand if you do multiplication first or division first. And then we have addition and subtraction. Same thing goes with that. You have to work left to right depending on what comes first, addition or subtraction. So let's do some examples here. All right, so the first example. So we have 5 plus 7 divided by 2 times 3 minus 8 plus 1. And notice the parentheses say that those have to stay together. So what we're going to do, and thinking back to our orders of operations, we have to do parentheses first. So I like to do these little carets, and I'm going to work left to right with the parentheses as well. So if I say 5 plus 7, well, 5 plus 7 is 12. And then what I can also do is I can also use the next set of parentheses. Now, if I look at this 2 times 3, notice that the 3 is the only number that's in the parentheses. And if that's the case, then we're going to treat that as a multiplication problem, not as parentheses. That parentheses there just stands for multiplication. I know it can get a little tricky. But again, if there's only one number inside the parentheses, treat it as it would be multiplication. So we're going to forget that one, and we're just going to actually recopy it. But then I can actually do this set of parentheses too. So 8 plus 1 is 9. So notice how I'm just making the problem a little simpler, but I'm rewriting all the steps. Okay, so then going back to the orders of operations, looks like I don't have any exponents. Next step would be multiplication or division. Okay, so it looks like I do have a division and I do have multiplication. And I notice that my division problem is farther to my division sign, is farther to the left than my multiplication sign is. So I have to do division first, then multiplication. That's a super common mistake that 6th graders like to do multiplication first. So let's do division first. So 12 divided by 2 is 6. And then I'm going to recopy everything else. Now I can do my multiplication. 6 times 3 is 18. Again, recopying everything else. And now I'm only left with one operation. So then I can just do 18 minus 9 to get me 9. So that's my final answer. So next example. So if you notice, we have these brackets here, okay? You can treat these as parentheses. They work kind of the same way, except with these, if you notice, we have another set of parentheses that's kind of inside those. It's enclosed in. So what we have to do is we have to work from the inside out. So we're still remembering, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. However, we want to work with these parentheses from the inside out. So it looks like I have this problem. Always it's good to read the problem first. So we have 5 times the quantity of, that's what I usually say when I see these nested parentheses, 24 minus the quantity of 6 plus 8. So we're going to work from the inside out. So I'm going to do this problem first. 6 plus 8 is 14. Again, I'm going to bring down everything I have. So I'm going to write 24 minus, and now this is what I have left here. And then I'm going to include the 5 times. Remember, if there's no sign in between the 5 and the bracket, you're going to assume it's multiplication. So again, we can even make these a little circular too. We can forget that they're in brackets and now just treat them as parentheses. So we're going to do 24 minus 14, which is 10. And then bring down the 5. 5 times 10, which is 50. And that would be my final answer. So again, with these two sets of parentheses, or the brackets and the parentheses, we're going to work from the inside out. My next example is dealing with our fraction bar or division. What we can do is treat whatever is in the denominator as parentheses. So if you want to even put parentheses around here, that those have to stay together, okay? So we can put those parentheses in and then do orders of operations. So we can say 3 to the second power is 9. So actually what I can do is rewrite the 14 with our fraction bar. Remember, the fraction bar just means division. So 3 to the second power is 9, and then I'm going to bring down the 2. Now again, I can add imaginary parentheses because I have to take care of all the operations that's in my denominator first before I divide. So 9 minus 2 is 7. Again, I'm going to bring down my 14 that I have here. And now this is going to work out really nicely. 14 divided by 7 is 2. And a good kind of rule of thumb is if you have a number that doesn't really work out nice, you probably know you did something wrong. So on to my next example. Now this one is, we're using variables in our equation and we're just kind of plugging those in. So it says if n equals 4, p equals 3, and t equals 6, we need to solve the equation of p times n to the second power divided by t plus 10. Okay, so again, let's treat it like we did in the last problem where we have to solve everything that's in those parentheses first. Again, we're kind of adding those parentheses just to help us remind ourselves that we need to solve either the numerator or the denominator first before dividing. So again, I can even add parentheses here. So let's kind of do those two problems separately and then divide them at the end. So I can deal with the numerator first. So we can think of p times n to the second power. Well, I know I have to do exponents before I do multiplication. So what I'm going to actually do is plug in those numbers first before I even start that problem. So 3 times 4 to the second power. And then I can even add in the denominator here too. So I can put 6 plus 10. And again, I'm just getting my information from the information in the problem. So I'm going to do this separately, and then I'm going to divide it. So 4 to the second power is 16. So I have 3 times 16, and that's going to be all over. And I can even, just do the addition in the denominator, 6 plus 10, because that's really easy to do. I can just make that 16. Okay, so I can say, well, 3 times 16 is going to be 48. Again, I'm treating that as one group, and then that can be all over 16. So 48 divided by 16 is 3. And then kind of another trick that you could have done here is, you see how there's the number 16 in the numerator and the denominator? What you can just do is actually cross those out, because they're actually dividing each other out and leaving that 3 by itself. But if you forgot that trick, you can just do what I did right there and do 14 divided by 16. Now my final example is dealing with properties. We went over properties already in 6th grade math. I just want to review them again in 7th grade. We have the commutative property. Again, think of those hand motions that I taught you. Those commutative properties, that flip-flop property. A plus B is the same as B plus A, and the same goes with multiplication. The associative property, think of those parentheses moving. We're just picking up those parentheses and moving them. Any spot that you would like. The distributive property, it takes the number on the outside of the parentheses and just multiplies it by the numbers inside the parentheses. The identity property, remember that property that we talk about, where any number added to 0 is itself, and this any number times 1 is itself as well. So a couple examples that deal with that. I asked you to name these properties. So if we look at this property, it looks like, well, it says 3 times 4 plus 3 times 5. So it looks like that 3 is being distributed to both numbers inside the parentheses. So this is going to be the distributive property. Just write DIST for short. And then this other one, it looks like these parentheses are actually moving. So they were at the end of the problem here, and they're at the beginning of the problem there. So this is going to be the associative. I would just put that for short. So that brings us to the end of the lesson. Thanks for watching.